Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Monaco. I'm from BBTV on the Future Now channel today, and that's for our weekly Future Now What's on really important things to do today. We will be welcoming in a few moments Jason Kanigan from the Closing Engine, as well as the founder of the Future Now channel, Mr. Stephen Monaco. So let me find if I can find Mr. Kanigan. Mr. Kanigan, do we have? Yes, Jason. How are you doing?
Hi, Stefan. Thanks, and appreciate my BBTV for hosting this.
Okay, let's try to have as well Stephen Monaco from Future Now. 1, 2, 3. Here we are. Hello, Stephen. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. How are you both?
So you guys have exciting things to discuss today, right?
Always.
So I'm going to leave the microphone open for you guys. I will pop up at the end of the short form webinar today. And I think we're going to talk about the topic.
Does advertising actually drive sales?
That's the question. I think there are a lot of people that would be, willing to figure out if yes or not.
Well, we have quite a bit of data from the big sporting event that just happened. A lot of people watched the Super Bowl, but not as many as you might think. And Stephen has done quite a bit of research on what happened. Well, we know most people don't watch TV commercials, right? I personally dislike most of them. I don't feel they're relevant to me in any way whatsoever. But the Super Bowl is the exception to that rule. Millions of people who aren't even football fans around the world do tune in, and it's a pop culture television event, isn't it? Right? So they're there specifically to watch the commercials. They're not even really to watch the game itself. So, Stephen, what did a 30-second television ad spot go for this year? What price tag did it have?
This year, it set a new record and was just over $5 million for 30 seconds of air. And Of course, that doesn't include the cost of the production of a commercial and the agency and all that, which is often many times that.
Right. So what did you see that you liked? Just, in no order from Sunday's big game. What did you see on the commercial side? Because I know we chatted a little bit. You were doing double duty. You were watching the game. It was a great game. I had a hell of a fun time watching it. And I'm not even a big American football fan, but I still enjoyed the heck out of the game. And there were some pretty good commercials in there.
There were.
What stood out to you?
Well, I have a sampling here in no particular order that I gathered from a number of different sources. So, of course, this is all very subjective, but the Tide commercials went over really well. The celebrity pitchman David Harbour, which some people might recognize from the Netflix series Stranger Things, he did really well. They were like, a couple of them were like fake ads. Like one was a fake ad for Old Spice that turned out to be a Tide ad where the two of them were sitting on the very long white horse.
Just super long white horse.
Yeah. I mean, using that kind of humor went really well. And they ran an ad in all of the 4 quarters. So there was continuity and humor, lighthearted. That went real well.
$20 million. $20 million. Wow.
Procter and Gamble, the parent company, they can afford that. The Amazon ad did really well. About the Alexa loses its voice, and as
how central, right?
I'm sorry.
How central that voice has become to a lot of people's lives,
right. And again, it's all subjective, but like you and I were talking a bit ago, like, do people recognize Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon? I mean, some of us know what he looks like. I think most people don't. So. It's always.
He was in it, but he wasn't the focus, fortunately.
Right. The Doritos Mountain Dew commercials did well. The pairing of the celebrities and the energy of those was something that resonated with people. The Budweiser ad did really well. There was no mention of beer.
No humor in that one at all.
There was no humor. there was no mention of beer. Instead, it focused on like humanitarian issues and that staple of clean drinking water that people need, especially in those areas hit by the hurricane in Puerto Rico and the southern parts of the U.S.
Right.
One that was really, really funny and people found hilarious was the NFL's own promotion for the league, which was the one that was a spoof on the reenactment of the finale scene in the movie Dirty Dancing with Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr.
Right.
It was just humorous, you know. It's just funny. They had the choreography down pat to the movie.
That was very late in the game too that they played that, and there were a number of Manning spots before that, which I think was good, because if they had just run you right into this thing immediately, I think the shock would have been too great. But they used a good strategy over the game of showing you him and other people a few times so that you got used to them. And okay, it was going to be wacky and zany and gonzo, and then okay, here's our big send off.
Yeah. He's done a fair amount of pitch work, so to speak, as for commercials. And one that gets an honorable mention was the Steven Tyler of Aerosmith for the Kia Stinger. People found it hard to relate to Aerosmith's frontman actually driving a Stinger.
I certainly did.
Yeah. But the concept was good. People liked the concept about the Dream On music and him driving in reverse to meet his younger self. That resonated with people. And the thing about that ad, which is important in any ad, any good ad, is that it was memorable. People remembered that it was for Kia. And that's a good thing. On the other side of the coin, there were a couple ads that didn't go well or weren't well received at all, generally speaking. And before I hit on them, the tone this year of ads overall was humor. That was they steered clear of anything political, just because the nation is divided and polarized politically, and they just decided to stay away from that. That said, Dodge did a Ram commercial with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and that didn't go over well at all, because people felt that it was not it went against his teachings and his beliefs. So that was.
Yeah, I felt it wasn't really in support of a free market economy. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when it comes to ads in general, and especially when you're spending $5 million just for the airtime, you know, choosing the content and what it is you're going to, the creative, as they call it in ad circles, but the content. You know, I mean, sometimes it's a real head scratcher as far as like why they chose what they chose. And then the other one was the T-Mobile ad that showed all the culturally diverse babies. That was not well received at all. The voiceover was done by Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington, and people perceived the message that she delivered as like condescending and being talked down to, which
I hated it. I felt like I was being told what to think right out of some Orwellian universe.
Well, you weren't alone, Jason.
Yeah.
There were many who were.
How about that Diet Coke ad with the mango flavor? It was kind of weird. It didn't work for me either.
The perception of that one was that it was very flat, and that in a night of noteworthy ads, there was nothing really about it that stood out. I mean, she was dancing, but her dancing wasn't like really
exceptional.
Nothing like that. And they really didn't do much to like sell the product, or I don't know. That one got a lot of
yeah. It's Diet Coke Mango is going to make you a little weird. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there were some questions about Coke and a company that is, you know, knows so much about branding and stuff, like why they of the Diet Coke flavors that are coming out, like why they chose mango, like the strongest flavor. So who knows? Again, it's all subjective.
Right.
The one that was, I don't know if it was hated the most, but it got like some of the lowest ranking. It didn't create that visceral reaction like you spoke to about the T-Mobile one, but it was the Groupon commercial. Which, if you even remember, it was they took a long time. 30-second spot. They took a long time to get to the end where someone just gets hit in the stomach with a football.
Yeah, Mr. Big Business. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seemed like it took them 30 seconds to write the script for a 30-second.
Yeah, I remember watching it and going, really? This is what they came up with? And of course, I'm going to give a stupid caveman laugh at the end result. But I honestly didn't even remember it was for Groupon. So,
and that's a big mistake. That's a big problem with the creative that you come up with. And if they don't remember, again, you might not relate to Steven Tyler driving a Kia, but it was memorable. You remembered it was Kia.
Right.
And, Dream On was cool to most people. A quick side about that, since that ad's run, it's on YouTube now in reverse. They run the commercial backwards. So the sound is backwards. And at the 53-second mark, there is a secret message. So if you care to dial into YouTube and find that, maybe you can see what is said or hear what is said at the 53-second mark.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this Super Bowl, Stephen, it was the 50-second one. That's a lot. It drew something ridiculous, over 100 million viewers. But what was that like in contrast with past years?
Well, it's really interesting, and I'm glad you brought it up because it was down. It was the lowest rated Super Bowl or lowest watched Super Bowl in 9 years. And that is noteworthy because the last time that the ratings were that low 9 years ago is when the Orleans Saints just blew out the Indianapolis Colts. And when there's not much of a contest left in the game and it's a blowout where one team's up by 30 points or something like that, people tune out. They get bored, like, this isn't really a game anymore. And but that wasn't the case Sunday. It was a very close game. And down to the 2 minutes.
Fun game.
It was. Down to 2 minutes into the game or left in the game, you didn't know who was going to win. But
so in this case, people didn't watch or see the ads maybe or watch the game, not because they showed up and then dropped out, but they never got there in the first place.
And that's key. Yeah. That's key. So, and
yet the price of that ad, the price of that airtime for that 30-second spot, it didn't drop. It didn't drop.
Exactly. So it brings up that old adage that we were talking about a minute ago about the tree in the forest. If a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it, did it really fall?
So I guess the parallel there is if expensive television advertising airs and people weren't watching, did it actually air? Well, they spent the money. There's a few other places, aren't there, where the same thing could be said?
Absolutely. Radio ads, print ads, all types of advertising, outdoor billboards, direct mail pieces, YouTube ads. Gosh, so many people. The majority of us can't wait for the 5 seconds to go by in which it takes for us to skip the ad. And then, of course, we're seeing more and more of those annoying interstitial ads where you have to wait through the 15 seconds or the 30 seconds before your content appears. So
I'm looking forward to the backlash to that, which is already beginning, I'm sure.
I'm sure it is, and we're going to see a lot more of them is what the
first. Before it goes away, it'll get worse, huh?
That's true. So if people aren't paying attention to your ads or they don't even see them, are they driving sales? Well, the answer to that would be no. And the key here is that people don't like to be interrupted. Consumers have changed the way that they consume media over the last decade or so dramatically. I mean, for the first time, they're in complete control of the way they consume media and entertainment. And, they don't want to be interrupted. In this age of binge watching programs on demand via subscription sites like Netflix, people enjoy watching what they want without interruption.
So wait a minute. If people aren't watching TV ads, and in many cases they're going to platforms where there aren't ads, like Netflix, how are companies and brands going to reach the audiences?
Well, they're going to use a relatively age-old tactic. You're going to see so much more of this, of paid product placement, which also is known as embedded marketing, which, believe it or not, goes back in the motion pictures all the way to the 20s. The first movie ever to win an Oscar for the Best Picture was the silent film called Wings, which starred Gary Cooper. Yeah, Gary Cooper. A little before our time, but and that film had a prominently placed Hershey bar in the late 20s in one of the scenes. So
I was just imagining the ingredients list, which probably included something like cocaine at the time.
It may have been. I don't know about
Certainly
that.
Cane sugar. That was a terrible aside. But
That's
speaking
okay.
of television, like soap operas were literally about product placement there, wasn't it?
Yeah, and in the 50s, it was really overt where, the character playing the part would pick up the box of laundry detergent, literally. And,
I really am going to enjoy doing my laundry with this Tide. Ding!
Exactly. Well, that reminds me, if you remember the film The Truman Show, they had, what was her name? Laura Linney was the actress that played Truman's wife. They did that stuff on that show, where she would turn to the camera in the kitchen and pitch a product like they did in the 50s when soap, or even before the 50s in soaps. And there's a ton of product placement that we might not be aware of. There's been episodes of Modern Family that are all about Apple and Apple products and the use of Apple products throughout that program. And that's a very top rated show, heavily watched or highly watched. So, I mean, that's no accident that they're using iPhones and iPods and iPads and talking about, I have a cooler one or the newer version than you. That is all very intentional, but they do a wonderful job of weaving it into the story so it doesn't feel overt.
I think that's a critical point.
In other places,
naturally there.
Other things you might not realize is that lyrics to songs often have paid product placement to drop the name. Like Courvoisier and different liquor. That's especially popular in rap and hip hop and stuff.
I'm glad you didn't try and simulate something.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Both of us should stay away from that.
I'm not a rap fan. Sorry. Anyone who is a musician, it's like, where's the music? Anyway, music videos. Lots of paid product placement in them. And video games for years and years, have had them. The driving games and stuff like that. Okay. You're passing billboards and stuff. I mean,
right.
And just it's becoming more and more prevalent. So in the age of the DVR set-top box, where paid product placement is starting to soar, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry just in the United States alone. So
we're skipping those commercials, and those feisty advertising executives have to figure out a more clever way to get the thing in front of us without pointing to it and going, "Do you see it? Do you see it? Look at this." It's got to be more subtle, huh? So less interruption, and geez, I think people really hate being interrupted by ads on the internet more than they do even them while watching TV, don't they?
Well, they just hate being interrupted, period.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to matter what we're doing. We don't like being interrupted with information that isn't relevant to us. So, yeah, I mean, as far as when it comes to the internet, there's I have some stats here from the IAB, which is the Interactive Advertising Bureau, and their report from 2016 on ad blockers was that 26% of desktop users and 15% of mobile consumers use ad blockers to remove ads from publishers' websites, an increase of 30% globally over the prior year. Sorry, my little headset fell out, part of live broadcasting. So 74% of Americans say that they leave websites that tell them to disable their ad blocker before they can see the content on that page.
I do. Yep.
I do too. Yep. We're not alone.
I'll search for something, and a bunch of reports or something will come up on different pages. But Forbes is the most guilty. They will scream at me to disable my ad blocker, and oh yeah, I forgot, and I'm out of there. I can find the information somewhere else.
That seems to be the tendency. I mean, in this age of attention span economy, I mean, we just don't have the patience for that, and we'll just hit the eject button and go look for the info elsewhere. There's some other interesting statistics in a report from last year that was published by PageFair called "The State of the Blocked Web." The results of that study said that the use of ad blockers in the United States lags that of Asian countries considerably, which is kind of interesting. However, the use of ad blockers is expected to skyrocket in North America, and 11% of the global internet population is already blocking ads on the web. So we're just going to see that skipping ads, or just not seeing them at all, continue. And there's something interesting that's going to happen in 9 days from now, which is on the 15th of February, the ad blocker that is natively built into Chrome is going to launch. So when you refresh your Chrome browser on the 15th or any time
that's interesting. So Google is pandering to the real behavior of its users in this case, rather than to the advertisers. Which they are one of which, or at least
right.
Like it seems cannibalistic or contradictory in some way.
They're a platform for advertising. You think about it. I mean, that's how Google makes money.
Right.
So
there's some conflict there that's going to have to be resolved over the next few years in some way or another.
It's going to be interesting because Chrome is the most widely used web browser in the world and has been since May of 2016. It edged out Internet Explorer and just continued to gain traction since then. So expect to see more paid product placement in all forms of entertainment on the internet and social media platforms as well.
Okay.
So
it sounds like everybody's got to take it easy. Advertisers can't come on too strong here.
We're not going to sit still for it. I mean, if it's so contrived and like we mentioned a minute ago, like the TV commercials from years ago where the actor turned to the camera and pitched the product, today that just won't work. So they're going to have to use a delicate touch, and brands will be using those methods to gain exposure to consumers because, in my opinion, traditional advertising is going to die out completely eventually. So yeah, they will have to take it easy. They don't want to be in our face, so overtly. So it's going to take a careful balancing act to keep those types of promotions from being detrimental to the customer experience, which is so important.
So how that advertisement makes me feel as the viewer, how that product placement makes me feel as the viewer. I'm wondering if there's an example that really stands out that we can share with our viewers.
Yeah, there's an excellent one. There's a couple of good ones. So one of the most famous product placements of all time was in the motion picture Castaway with Tom Hanks, where he's the Federal Express executive, the very uptight guy who goes to Russia, and then the Federal Express cargo plane crashes, and then he becomes stranded on a desert island for 4 years. So FedEx spent a lot of money to be, FedEx spent a fair chunk of change to be an integral part of that story.
Okay.
Besides the plane and him working for FedEx, and you're seeing FedEx constantly, it was such that because it was part of the story, we didn't go, oh gosh, FedEx again.
No, yeah, I did. I don't even remember noticing it.
Right.
It's
most people
obvious
didn't.
when you say what company did he work for? FedEx.
Yeah, and it continued as he's on the island, and he starts opening the Federal Express boxes. You see those boxes again and again, and I don't know if you remember the end of the film when he's finally rescued and is back in Memphis, where FedEx is, and he takes the one FedEx box that he never opened and delivers it to the woman who's like an artist or has a gallery or something. So the continuity was throughout. However,
even with the message of we deliver it under any conditions.
So that didn't make us feel so much. That was just an excellent example of paid product placement because it was integral to the story. The most famous product placement, and like it's the coup de grace, it's the one to shoot for as far as the way that they did it, is when his character, Chuck Nolan was the name of the character in the movie that Tom Hanks played. He opens the FedEx box that has the volleyball in it, the Wilson volleyball, and he gets company, so to speak. He's all by himself, and he gets company from the most unlikely character, quote unquote, air quotes around the volleyball eventually became Wilson. Chuck Nolan's only friend during the 4 years where he's stranded. And this product was very captivating. This product placement was very captivating and notable for a very particular reason, because besides the paid product placement, Chuck didn't just talk about it, he talked to it. So this inanimate object of this ball became an actual character that listened to Chuck and provided him companionship during that long period of solitude in a way that resonated with the audience. And we could all feel the grief of Tom Hanks' character Chuck when he finally makes the last ditch effort to escape his island his island prison. And he makes a makeshift raft, and he's out there at sea, and he gets hammered by the big wave, and Wilson is floating away, and he's crying and he's screaming, "I'm sorry, Wilson." I mean, he's weeping, and
to a ball,
exactly. But seeing that in the theater or later on DVD or on cable or whatever, I mean, you're not thinking about it like that. You're feeling some pain, that he's
you're empathizing. Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a very heartfelt moment, and just like you said, I mean, to a ball, but we didn't think of it as a ball. Wilson became a character, and that was masterful. That was just masterful on the part of Wilson, and the results were really impressive.
Okay. I mean, was this product placement effective?
It really was. It was pretty amazing. So Wilson Sporting Goods Company created a promotional ball, a volleyball with the likeness of Wilson, with the facial markings. There was a handprint that he had used to make kind of the face on the volleyball. And it was called the Wilson Castaway volleyball. And
get your own.
So the film came out in 2000. That ball became available right thereafter, and 12 years later, 2012, it was still selling on Amazon at giant retailers like Amazon and Target, and the sales dwindled after that in 2012. But 12 years is a long run for a product.
For anything.
It is a novelty version of a volleyball. I don't know that volleyball players would have used a Wilson one, but people bought it for, Wilson became a part of pop culture. Mm-hmm. I mean, he, it, she, whatever. I mean, Wilson was part of our lives and memorable. And, people still remember Wilson today and remember the thing. I don't think they'll ever forget him. When you think about movies, Tom Hanks crying and yelling, "I'm sorry, Wilson."
It's one of those burn into your brain moments.
As he floated away, precisely.
So that example is a great one of a company managing to connect their product and themselves with their audience. Mm-hmm. How can companies more deliberately but subtly or delicately, as you put it, do that?
They need to stop interrupting people. And they need to start thinking about how to empathetically connect with people with storytelling that touches, that touches consumers on an emotional level. So make them smile, amuse them, make them reminisce, make them feel nostalgic, make them feel loved, desired, included, inspired, motivated, encouraged, valued, aggravated, outraged, even. Make them feel something. And of course, your offerings, your product or service are going to dictate what type of emotion you want people to feel. But it's key to make them feel something, because it's people that are making buying decisions. Even so, I mentioned that because it's kind of a no-brainer, but a lot of times people think in B2B that doesn't work. That's not the case, because it's people making the buying decision, not company. It's people that work for the companies, and as people, you can touch them on an emotional level too. And for an example, just off the top of my head, to get a B2B buyer or a buyer within a B2B company to feel aggravated, for instance, could be a good way to touch them and get something to resonate with them about that. They don't have to settle for second best, because nobody likes settling for less than what they need. And if the current products or services they're using in their business aren't cutting it, and that's aggravating, if you kind of touch on that. I'm not saying twist the knife at all. I'm just saying make them aware that there's another alternative, and here it is, and you kind of do the compare and contrast thing.
Okay. So no longer, here is our product that has a bunch of features. You should like it because of that. But more, how can we bring this in and help somebody feel something about what we're offering?
Very much, very much. I mean, people don't really care about products and services. I mean, they don't care about features in the products and services. They care about themselves and the problem that they want solved, or the pain that they're feeling, or the need they have, or in many cases, it's just the want they have. I mean, certainly we all buy things we want that we don't necessarily need, but it's touching on the emotions that are the underlying drivers to the decision making. We like to think as people, especially in a B2B setting, that we're using just rational thinking to make the decisions. But emotion is definitely a factor, and we might not want to admit it or realize it, but we have emotions, and they definitely have an impact on purchase intent and actual purchases.
So companies can't expect these opportunities to just come by every day. What do they have to do to get in front of their customers without interrupting them?
Well, if it's not paid content, paid placement, creating content that is interesting to them or that is relevant to them. But, again, you have to think about attention spans and how short they are today. So it has to be short and punchy and on point.
Okay.
Most people are tuning out things. Well, almost everyone tunes out messages that aren't relevant to them. But the messages that are relevant about products or services or any kind of offering that are germane to us, germane to our life situation, our job, our family, someone we care about, our ears perk up and we want to know about those things.
Suddenly you have my attention. Yeah. That happens to me. I'll ignore 100 YouTube videos, but then one will come on, or commercials, right? One will come on and in 5 seconds I'm entranced. I'm like, what is this? This is suddenly, and I'll watch that for an hour if it's relevant, but it has to pass that little hurdle for getting the engagement at the start.
It does. And often the hurdle isn't little. I mean, it's a large hurdle. It's a filter. So It's hard to get through. But, we're keenly interested in information about the things that we're keenly interested in, to be intentionally redundant. I mean, there are some things, pick it, your hobby, your profession, your children, your significant other, whatever, and you're thinking in their best interest that when you come across information about those things, you don't get tired of it. You want to know more. You will subscribe to a channel or subscribe to an email list or whatever, because you want that info. You want to be informed. You want to get cutting edge info about the brand, about the industry, whatever.
So what are some touch points where people can get that engagement, where companies can go to find people and engage with them?
Well, they need to engage with them at every touch point. So email, the website, online chat, trade shows, seminar, wherever the brand has a presence and people can interact with the brand or the company. I use those words interchangeably. Some companies have many brands, but it's wherever and social media. Oh my gosh, wherever you have a presence where you are interacting with consumers, that is a touch point. Of course, retail, bricks and mortar, for stores, or, it could be showrooms, anywhere where you and the consumer, touch and interface is a touch point. And at all of those places are places to provide content that's relevant.
Okay. And getting engagement.
Engagement. I mean, I talk about this constantly. I can't stress it enough because it's so important. It is so important to engage people, engage consumers, engage customers, paying customers. Consumers would be prospective customers. Engage them in dialogue.
Okay.
Talk to them. They want to be heard. They demand to be heard. They insist upon it nowadays. We want to be heard, and companies need to really, really, really listen to learn and listen to understand and take that feedback from the market, from consumers, from other stakeholders, even vendors, suppliers, would-be partners, companies in your niche that are not competitors. There's so much information to glean that's really insightful and can help make decisions regarding how to shape your product offerings, your service offerings, and on point to this episode, even shape your marketing. That's important. I mean, if you were T-Mobile and you talked to T-Mobile brand advocates and other people, even just using a cell phone, not necessarily T-Mobile customers, and who doesn't use a cell phone, and got some, and I'm not talking about a contrived focus group, but just got some feedback. Like, what do you think about this? Does this resonate with you? Here's our concept. They've been doing that in the entertainment industry for years. I started my my professional marketing career at Warner Brothers in Burbank at their headquarters, and was interested to learn. They write different endings for movies, and they shoot different endings for movies, and they test them. They'll have a theater full of people, and they'll do what they call an exit poll, and they'll say, "What did you think of the ending?" And they'll have another group looking at the other ending, and they research it a lot, and they'll go back and re-edit and shoot the movie, or not shoot it differently, but they'll edit it differently because they've shot so much footage, and they'll even edit it. Like if it's going to get an R rating, and they pay the MPAA Association the fee to say, "What do you think?" And they're like, you need to remove these curse words and take out this nudity, and then you get a PG-13. Getting that market feedback is important. The PG-13 audience is much, much bigger than the R. So again, just get all the feedback possible from the market by engaging. Engage in dialogues. I say this again and again. I can't stress it enough because it's an imperative. Engage in conversations that lead to meaningful dialogues and establish relationships with customers. That's what they want. That's what it's more than a craving nowadays. It's becoming more and more of a demand. Like, listen to me. I'm talking to you. I have information to share. I have good things to say. I have criticism, and there's just a plethora of information out there.
Well, I see Stefan has returned, so that must be something. Must mean something.
I was just trying to fight Facebook hackers. You guys having that live streaming on, so it became a rendezvous for people that do not like what we do. So they're just trying to mess with the Facebook. I'm making undoubtedly some advertisement for Buick, because I'm saying Facebook instead of Facebook. And I think the clock is ticking, because I think that Stephen, you have an engagement in 2 minutes, I think.
I do.
So everyone's time. Like the Jack in the Box, just say, hey guys,
pop in.
What's ticking?
I really appreciate it, Jason. Thanks for your time. Thanks for hosting.
You bet. Hey, I want you to sing us out with that Maya Angelou quote.
Oh yeah, this is all about feeling. Talking about what we were, or speaking to what we were talking about before, about engaging people and getting them to feel. So Maya Angelou has a quote that's been used a number of times. I'm sure you've heard it before, but make sure I have it exactly right here. It's, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's really true. So when you engage people, your consumers, your customers, make them feel. Make them feel something.
Even if it's aggravated.
Yeah, even if it's aggravated. If that's appropriate. Okay. Thank you all
for sharing a lot of factual information. This was a discussion that was really numerically based. It wasn't just opinions, right? It was going back to real data.
Exactly.
So I look forward to talking with you next week.
Okay, looking forward to it as well. Thank you all.
If people have questions, they can ask it, and they can come into the comment sections here. Stephen Monaco and Jason Kanigan and myself will address those questions. And I think we have an appointment for account-based marketing servers as a service on Thursday, same time, 1 p.m. I think it's going to be quite interesting, because we're going to jump into what I call the account-based marketing strategy and what goes before using tools with an ABM SaaS. Because in fact, if you're not preparing yourself to get into that reverse funnel activities, instead of doing the classical and conservative lead funnel that everyone is using these days, you will be probably unprepared to engage with all your advocates that are, building your audience and your community. And within that community, inside of it, you have your customers. So that would be something I think exciting and interesting for marketers, CMOs, CEOs, and people that want to dive into new technology, MarTech.
Right. Definitely a new kind of marketing tool that's much more powerful than anything I've seen.
Yeah, and I think next week we're going to also have a closing engine topic coming soon that we will jump on your Facebook page to know what's the topic, the upcoming topic. And I'll be happy to engage with you, Jason, to have some meaningful discussions, sharing some slides and toolkits with the audience as well.
Okay. Well, look forward to that. And thanks again to MyBBTV for hosting today's Future Now.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.